So you own a camera, you've been shooting videos or photos, and now you want to know how to get paid. Let's jump into it. What's good, creative fan? Brandon Washington here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the billing process as far as like how I bill my clients and ultimately actually get paid. Now, this is my Business Monday series, and if you're new here, every Monday I drop a video talking about video production and photography and the business side of that. But in today's video, we're talking about how do I actually bill my clients. Now, it's a pretty simple formula, but I do have to just back up just a little bit just to make sure that the whole thing makes sense. Now, a couple weeks ago, I released my contract bundle pack, and in there is all of the contracts and documents that I use to bill my clients. The reason why I mention that is because a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about, those things are in that contract bundle pack. And so if you already have that, you can actually follow along and it'll be super simple, but I'll just make sure I have a lot of descriptions up on the screen so that way it makes sense for anyone who doesn't have it or who wants to build their own contract system. All right, so the first step when it comes to how I bill my clients is, first of all, in my contract, I have it stated that all of the information as far as billing, what work their clients are actually getting, and all the deliverables is all going to be stated in something called a work order. The reason why I do it this way is because the contract is really good for laying down how you and your client are going to work with one another. But a work order is perfect, especially if you're in those situations where you're working with the same client on multiple projects. See, the hardest thing that I found was that every time I wanted to work with a client, I was creating new contracts for each individual job, and it was pretty much a lot of repetitive stuff for every ongoing project. However, what I found with work orders is you're able to bill your clients for individual projects as they come up. So they sign an initial contract, and then for every additional project you do after that, all you have to do is fill out the work order. In the work order, you can say things like what the actual deliverables are. So what are they actually getting for what they're paying, what they're actually going to be paying, how they're going to be paying it, so how it's broken up. And then also you can add in additional elements like if they want something additional, it costs this much more. In my experience, doing the work order is probably the easiest way to make sure that your client knows exactly what they're getting and what they're paying for. And ultimately, it makes your job a whole lot easier. So at the end of the day, when you actually go to submit all their final edits, you can just look back over the work order, see what they're actually going to be getting, and ultimately just send that over to them for the price. Now, when it comes to how I then go about collecting my money, this is where I have kind of evolved over the years and have pretty much have come down to using digital services in order to actually collect the money. See, a lot of filmmakers don't want to have to deal with paying the additional fees, whether that is transaction fees or paying the cost of using a service like Square or QuickBooks. But personally, I find that you almost always should use these types of services. The main reason why is, one, it is simpler for your client. The hardest thing for a client is trying to figure out how to pay you. And if you don't accept credit cards, them trying to figure out how to write a check or how to use PayPal or Venmo or Square Cash, or even try to get a cash like envelope to you or a check, those things become difficult. And at the end of the day, you should make paying you the easiest thing the client does. This is why I use personally a service like Square. Square allows me to use their system to actually send them an invoice, then convert that invoice and allow them to actually pay me via their email. So they don't have to go to any extra websites. All they got to do is just click on the pay. They can use Apple Pay or Google Pay. They can then also just type in their credit card number. The transaction is instantly done and they don't have to think twice about it. And even if your client decides like, okay, well, I don't know how to use that, you can call them and actually just take the payment over the phone. They can give you the credit card number and you can type it in. Now, I'm not sponsored by Square in any way whatsoever. In fact, I pay Square quite a bit of money every single year because I have to pay all the transaction fees. But honestly, I find that it's absolutely worth it. The other benefit is when you pay those transaction fees, you can actually write those off at the end of the year for your taxes. So even though, yes, you are having to pay those transaction fees up front, you can then write those things off and then it kind of works out in your favor when it comes to paying taxes at the end of the year. The other main reason why I like to use these types of services is it's just more professional. clients tend to take you more seriously when you're sending them these types of actual digital invoices where they can put in their credit card numbers. But then also when you use a service like when I use Square, it gives me the option to actually send reminder transactions. So that if a client doesn't pay when I first send it, then in a day, it'll send them a reminder. 3 days later, it'll send them another one. And then 7 days out, it'll send them another one. And you can kind of customize that within Square. But I like the fact that it sends the email on my behalf. So then it's not me nagging them to continue to pay or to try to get that payment in. But it's more so just like it's just the process that happens. And people tend to respond better to big companies or processes than one filmmaker or photographer nagging a client about payment. Now, Square is just one system that I use, but you could use PayPal or you could use QuickBooks. And quite honestly, I use both of those as well. So there's no one perfect system. And I do strongly recommend you check out a couple. I'll have links down below to the ones that I've used. But I will say that no matter which one you decide to go with, by setting up things correctly from the beginning, by having your contract and then having a work order and then using these digital services to actually collect the funds, it does make the process a lot simpler. One, for your clients, but then two, for you. And then ultimately you come off more professional where the client sees that you are not someone that they want to just you maybe take advantage of or that's not taking this business seriously, but that this is a serious transaction and that they should take it as such. Now, I know one big question that comes up is, well, what happens if the client decides not to pay? Well, this is something that I mentioned in another video, but the way I typically bill my clients is I require 50% down at the beginning of the project. This is non-refundable. Then I require another 25% of the project due once the first draft of edits are actually being submitted. Now, this remaining 25% I collect at that time, but when I send them the video still has the watermarks on it. I don't collect the remaining 25% until the very end of the project. And at that point, the client basically gets billed for that last 25%. So at this point, they've already paid 75. So what's another 25%? But I charge them that remaining 25% to get the final video with no watermarks. I never send the final video without watermarks until I receive that last 25%. Now, if you're going back and forth with a client on edits and they're needing, additional time or they're having to pay for additional edits, well, then you can continue to charge them for those additional edits, but you don't charge them that remaining 25% until they are ready to receive the video with no watermarks. And that is what I personally do. It's written in my contracts that way. It's written in the work orders that way as well. So that way the client knows that even if they have paid, let's say, for additional edits and additional tweaks, and technically they've overpaid that remaining 25% because they've needed additional tweaks, they know that they're not going to get the final video without watermarks until that remaining 25% is paid. That way you as a creator don't ever feel like you've been taken advantage of. And if you run into a worst case scenario where a client just decides they're not going to pay the final invoice, that last 25%, they've never received the video without a watermark on it, so they don't have anything they can actually post. But you've also already received 75% of the payment. And so at that point, I personally feel like I haven't been taken advantage of. They just decided not to finish out the project. And at that point, I'm not really too upset about it. So maybe that'll help you guys when it comes to how you choose to bill your clients. Now, all of this stuff is going to be a part of that contract bundle pack that I talked about at the beginning. Like I said, I have contracts in there, I have work orders in there, invoices in there. So everything that you could possibly need when it comes to billing or working with a client are in those contracts. Now, of course, I'm not a lawyer, but I will say these contracts have been looked over and I do think that they should work for most of you. Of course, you're going to want to read them, maybe even show them to a lawyer yourself if you feel more comfortable doing that. But at the end of the day, the whole deal is customizing these contracts for yourself and for your business. But the way they're currently set up, if you go in and make the tweaks that they already tell you to make, they should be good to go with any type of client you may have. But thanks so much for checking out this video. If you have any additional questions about contracts or documents, leave those down below. Also, continue to ask questions that you want me to cover in these Business Mondays. And of course, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Real quick, before we actually jump out of this video, even though I technically already ended it, hopefully you haven't clicked off yet, but I will be announcing the winner to the giveaway this Friday. I'm excited to announce the winner. I think you guys are going to be really excited as well, but tune in this Friday. The winner of the giveaway for the holidays is going to be announced. Catch you guys in the next one.